Well, here at City Hall, there was a lot of opposition during public comment, but ultimately the council voted to pass this measure 6-3. Whether or not Seattle police should be able to use less lethal weapons for crowd control was the focus for the full city council.
Do not arm SPD with these cruel, less lethal weapons.
And for community members.
During 2020 protests, SPD used these weapons and their judgment on when to escalate indiscriminately and cruelly.
People who say they were there.
All of a sudden, the blast balls start going off.
Gave their testimony.
I was also kicked by a police officer and targeted with a blast ball that exploded against my left thigh.
What happened back then led to a lawsuit highlighting protesters' injuries. The city agreed to pay $10 million to settle the case.
We have a very different Seattle Police Department today.
Councilmember Bob Kettle says police have been under a consent decree with the Department of Justice for the last 12 years, which mandates reforms in police practices, including crowd control measures.
I think it's going to impact people by having a Seattle Police Department that has grown over the last number of years, that has looked at and did the lessons learned from 2020 and has made changes.
How crucial is this, if it passes, to finally bringing an end to the consent decree?
It's very crucial. I mean, it's very important. Judge Robarts has been clear this is the one area that needed to be addressed. This legislation is the final piece of the puzzle.
And since it did pass, it's now up to Seattle Police to come up with some revised policies about using these tools in crowd management, but they're only going to be used in very specific ways. Once their policies are ready, it will go off to DOJ and the Federal Monitor to review it. Joyce?
And you mentioned 3 council members voted no. Did they explain why they're against it?
Well, during today's meeting, there were a lot of amendments to this that council members clashed over. At the end of the meeting today, Councilmember Moore said this process felt rushed, and she said she did not think it was an adequate policy. Joyce?
Thank you, Natalie, in Seattle tonight.